What is good, y'all? We're actually here with a YouTube exclusive. I've already recorded like fucking 17 different YouTube videos, but I don't know what's going to happen with this one. Don't expect anything too extraordinary because I don't know how to do all that. But I do want to talk about Bunny Inglesias today because with his cover art, I know it's been out for a little bit, but I've had a lot to say about Bunny Inglesias, but I've just not had the time to say it. Today I'm kind of going to cover everything I've said about him in the past and everything I think that's been kind of confirmed or at least hinted to with his cover art. So the first thing that I want to talk about is his ego type. Is he freedom or restrictive? And I would personally say that he's a freedom ego type. The reason why I'm saying that he's a freedom ego type is because freedom egoists always tend to score the first goal. If you look at all the goals in the NEL, all the first goals were scored by freedom ego types. In the Barcher vs Bastard Munchen game, it was Batra that scored first, and Batra is confirmed to be a freedom ego type. In the Munchen vs Bastard Munchen game, it was Chigiri, and I honestly want to say that Chigiri is a freedom type, because we've seen from his story he doesn't really evolve from restricted environments. In the Ubers game, it was Isagi that scored first, and then in the PXG game, it was Shido that scored first. And even if you want to go back and look at the U20 game, we've still got Sai who scored first in the first half, and then we've got Shido who scored first in the second half. And then if you want to go even further back than that, I'm pretty sure that even the second selection does kind of follow some of these rules. I don't think the third selection does, but the third selection's kind of different. Either way, I promise you that there is some validity to freedom egoists being the first ones to score, because it just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But anyway, I think Bunny is a freedom ego type, not just because of that, by the way, but another thing that I think is him being a freedom ego type is that he lights up when Isagi sees past his facade. And what I mean by that is that he seems to be kind of hiding behind this facade of happiness, but he only actually lights up when Isagi points out that he's hiding behind this facade. And I know that that seems like a little bit of a reach, but if you think about it, this is the first time that he's actually been in the freedom of somebody seeing what he's actually like, if any of that makes sense. That's not the only reason why I think he's a freedom ego type, because he's more than happy talking and interacting with Isagi, and I know that that seems like a little bit of a leap, but if you think about all the restricted ego types like Kaiser and Barou, for example, they're not really talkative people. Like, Kaiser literally threw his fucking dinner at the other players on his team, and Barou only respected Isagi after he proved that he was striker material. Before that, Barou was more than happy to call Isagi a worthless striker, because it seems to be that freedom ego types tend to be more sportsmanlike. If you compare them to restricted ego types aren't really that sportsmanlike. Or at least they are, but you've got to prove yourself first. And then the final thing that I think is kind of backing up that he is a freedom ego type is that at the moment he's in a restricted environment because he's basically trying to uphold all the expectations that people have placed on him. So while he's doing all that, he's hiding behind a facade of happiness, but he's not actually happy. He's not actually in the environment that he wants or needs to be in. So when Isagi points out that he doesn't think that he's being true to himself and that he thinks he's got the saddest smile on his face, Bunny then lights up because it's the first time in a very long time for Bunny that somebody's actually seen him. They've seen past the facade, they've seen past the act, they know what he's like. So I know the whole freedom argument isn't the most solid argument because the main theory behind it is that he scored first and that's kind of the driving factor. But to elaborate on why I think he's freedom, I'm going to talk about him being in a restricted environment at this point in time and why it doesn't actually suit him. So I think the current environment that Bunny's in at the moment is restrictive because he's basically got to uphold the expectations that people have placed on him. But it's not only that. The cover art depicts his striker ego as actively restricting his neck, if you know what I mean. Even with characters like Hiyori, for example, when they see their striker ego as a burden, it's not actively affecting them, it's more so just weighing them down. If you compare Hiyori's cover, for example, to Bunny's cover, Bunny looks like he's being actually affected by his striker ego, while Hiyori looks like he's just being weighed down by it. I know that sentence doesn't make that much sense, but you can literally fucking see the difference, right? Like, also, I'm pointing up here. Hopefully I'm able to put the fucking panels in, because otherwise I'm just gonna look like a dumbass. On his cover art, it looks like he's trying to move forward, which obviously makes sense because he's trying to move forward in life. He's trying to evolve in life. But his striker chains seem to be pulling him back. And that to me seems like the first time that Bunny's not got the freedom that he wants, because it looks like he's trying to move and he can't. But I don't think it's just that. If you look at how the chains are pulling on him, it's kind of like how you pull a dog when they start to pull you when you're walking them, if that makes any sense. You're pulling them back. You're pulling them back towards you, back towards the path you want them to take. You're not letting them pull you and take you on a path that they want to take. If you kind of take this example of walking a dog, and then obviously the dog starts to pull you because it wants to go a different direction, and then you actively pull it back to take the path that you want to, and then apply that to Bunny's story, or at least Bunny's character, then it does kind of make sense that he is a freedom ego type that's in a restricted environment. He's basically a dog on a leash being told what to do. Because, cool segue, that would also explain why he doesn't have a passion for football anymore, because he actively doesn't like it. The path that he's on now, the path that he's taking, isn't something that he actually wanted to take himself. Because at one point, when Isagi is talking to him, Isagi talks about how passionate he is about football. And then he asks Bunny, is there anything you're passionate about? And then Bunny says, maybe once, but now I'm not so sure. So, taking that, and then obviously taking his cover art, and then applying it to him, it seems like this restricted environment of constantly upholding other people's expectations and constantly walking down a path that he himself hasn't chosen has finally deteriorated his passion for the sport that he's playing in the first place. It seems like he's no longer playing the sport because he actually likes to play the sport. He's playing it because people expect him to, and they expect him to play it well. Because if you even look at the stats that Isagi brings up when he looks at Bunny Inglesias, so when Isagi brings up all the information that they have on Bunny Inglesias at the moment, it says, Bunny Inglesias, forward, 19 years old, 191 centimeters tall, holy fuck, bro, and he's left-handed. And then it also says, a rising star who led FC Barca into the future. He was also selected for the new generation World 11. He joined the first team midway through the season and has since scored 11 goals, playing as a second striker alongside Lavinho. So he got subbed in to the main team halfway through the season. So that's obviously kind of forcing him into a restricted environment because they're midway through the season. If you don't perform now, one, your reputation is gone, and two, your club's also kind of fucked. And then one of the other things that I kind of want to talk about with Bunny and maybe his ego type, I guess, it kind of goes into the mentality side. He might not even understand why he's gotten to this place in the first place. With his name being Bunny, we obviously have the lucky item called a rabbit's foot. And a rabbit's foot tends to increase a person's luck, or at least that's how it works in games. So if we take that and then apply it to Bunny, it's quite possible that Bunny is an amazing character, but he doesn't understand how he's got to this position. Because that would then also bring in the quote that Chris Prince was saying when he said that there are some people out there that have incredible talents, but they don't understand how it works. We might be getting Bunny Inglesias to see that problem firsthand, even though technically speaking, Nagi was the story of that firsthand, but then Nagi has changed now. So there is a possibility out there that Bunny is incredibly lucky and he doesn't understand how it works. Because kind of moving over to the second part of this, is he a talented learner or is he a genius? I personally think that he would fall under the genius category. With his name being Bunny and him having incredible jumping power, it kind of goes without saying that that's probably his main weapon. But not only that, I also imagine he's probably going to be one of the speedsters. Definitely not as fast as like Loki or Chigiri or maybe Zantetsu, but I imagine he's got speed kind of on par with Kaiser or a little bit faster. Because I think the genius stature of Bunny low-key explains so much around him. It would explain why Sai doesn't understand him and why Sai got beat in the first place. If he doesn't actually understand why he's this lucky, it would explain why he doesn't understand it. It would explain kind of the inside joke of his name with him having incredible jumping power and being called Bunny Inglesias. And maybe, just maybe, his leaping ability isn't the only genius thing about him. Maybe his whole understanding or experience with luck is the genius gene that Bunny has. But kind of taking Bunny being a genius as a segue over to our next point, that would then also explain why Sai was interested in Shido for the U20 game, because if you think about it, Shido operates kind of like how Bunny does. They're both dominant in the air. Both of them would have been geniuses that have incredible understandings or at least connections with luck. Both of them need a player that can dribble the ball up the field and pass to them, because with Bunny we've got Lavinho. So then with Shido we'd obviously have Sai. What is good? It's editor me. I've just finished doing everything. The video isn't done yet. I think I'm going to do a part 2 if I do like this when I wake up. But I'm gonna end it here because I want to upload this before I go to sleep and then wake up and think, oh, I hate this video. But if you've managed to make it this far, I just want to say thank you so much for watching the video. Thanks for indulging my bullshit as always. Never stop updating your world's perspective. Drink water, look after yourself. Peace.